over the hump. Week one is probably the hardest week, so congrats on getting through it. There's a lot of changes happening in week one. The schedule, a new routine, with that intermittent fasting. We're moving and journaling and meditating. There's new foods and new quantities of food. And then on top of that, we're dealing with all the symptoms of cleansing. Our energy levels may be a bit lower, cravings might have come up, and emotions might have been a little bit rocky this past week. But you are over the hardest part. I don't know about you, but I woke up day 8 feeling like I had more energy than I've had in a really, really long time. My mood is elevated and I just feel really good in my body. For me, the meditating and journaling each morning has become a really important part of setting up my day. And I hope you guys are starting to feel as though you're kind of over that hump and you've created some new routines that maybe will stick around a little bit longer than the reset itself. So day 7, Sheena met with one of our members on the reset, and I just put together a few of the kind of highlights of their conversation. They talk about a little bit of the challenges around finding the right meal size if you're doing it on your own, and how to deal with that with leftovers. They talk about fat, of course, our favorite topic, and how fat can really be this antidote for snacking. And then finally they get into the ketogenic diet. The member asks kind of some questions, noticing some similarities about our diet to the ketogenic diet. And although there's some similarities, there's bigger differences. And Sheena just kind of outlines those similarities and differences, and she also goes through some of the pros and cons to the ketogenic diet. So if that's something that has been interesting you, you've been interested in, maybe take a little listen to this recording, and you might find that information that you've been looking for on that diet. So we hope that you can join us next week on the video conference, and we will send you that link through the forum. So again, Sunday evening is when we'll be meeting. I hope you have an amazing week 2, guys, and talk to you soon. Ciao.
And is your whole family doing it, or are you just doing it on your own? Or
no, I'm just doing it on my own.
Okay, all right.
So, but that, it hasn't been too bad actually. What I'm finding is the kids are actually kind of interested in what I'm eating, and they want to try it, and so yeah. Well, the deal was with my husband. I said, "This is what I'm doing. So you either join me, or you're going to take on the role of the chef in the house." So he's been doing all the meals. Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
So when it comes to just sitting down and eating vegetables, I'm like, is this recipe, am I sort of expected to eat all of this? Is this what I need? Or, so that part, I've found a little bit confusing. Like, is this going to just be for me, or should I be expecting that it's a 2 serving or, so yeah. I guess that's one thing that was a bit challenging, but I just eat them for leftovers. So
yes. Yeah. And that's perfect. That's exactly right. Making a soup as just a one-time, like 1 serving is pretty challenging, but depending on the person, some people are really hungry and they want to, they might eat the majority of the soup or even all of the soup in one sitting. Other people might have even just like a mug full and be done. So it's just varies on the individual. But what I say to everyone is just take whatever leftovers you have. And if you're not going to use them, right away, you can certainly freeze them. But one of the best things about this program too is the idea of like, if we want you to continue, right? So if you have leftovers at the end where you've been freezing your soups, then it's so much easier to just extend the program. You can start taking the soups out of the freezer and thaw them and, do that for the next week and going into the 4th or 5th week. But really it's just to kind of, it's eat at your own pace and always listening to your own body, right? So if there's a big salad and you've had, you're 5 bites in and your body's telling you, I'm done. It's the idea of really learning to listen to, the body's information and what it's telling. Because anytime that we add more fat, that's one thing that, so far has been really good feedback, is that the majority of people really aren't hungry, right? Like you can really go, kind of 2 meals a day and feel satisfied and feel good, and not searching for snacks and going to bed starving, thinking, what am I gonna, I might have to wait so much longer until I eat. It's not that. So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, actually, I'm already thinking, okay, so we're first weekend, and that's one thing I've noticed, is because what I always struggled with was always just this feeling of hunger all the time. So I'm always eating, like every, for sure, 2 to 3 hours. And now what I'm finding is I don't get that sudden urge, like all of a sudden I'm really hungry, I need to eat. It's so much more gradual now. Yeah. So I have more time, and plus it's already prepped, so I know what I'm eating at my next meal. Right. But that's a pretty huge thing for me personally, because that's something I've always struggled with, is just always being hungry. So this has been great. Like I'm really surprised by it, actually. Yeah.
Too, with the portions as well, is it would be one thing too, where if you really loved that, say the mushroom soup, and you think this is awesome, if you have all the ingredients, you can certainly make it again in the same week, and you don't have to follow every single recipe. So if there's a soup that or maybe even a full recipe that just doesn't really resonate with you, don't feel like you have to make every single one. For this week, like what was the big, or if anything, like was there an aha moment or a sort of a realization that you made?
I think it would be mostly just related to like my biggest sort of skepticism going in was, this doesn't look like a lot of food. And I mean, I've never eaten just high fat, like the high healthy fats. And I guess I really just didn't think it would be enough food with like my activity level. And I've even said to my husband, I'm so satisfied at all of my meals. I don't feel like snacking. I haven't had a ton of cravings. So just so far, just really pleasantly surprised by the fact that I can, I'm not eating as much as I used to, but I feel really good. Like I don't have any cravings for that same stuff, because my husband has been making meat every night, and I just kind of look at it and I'm like, oh, pretty satisfied with my food. So it's kind of nice. I'm assuming that's got to be the high fat, right? You just feel so satisfied.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It makes a huge, huge difference. It really does. It's as simple as, and really all we're doing is the MCT. With a little bit of extra too, but generally speaking, it's that MCT oil. But what happens is that your body can utilize it so quickly and so efficiently that it really makes a huge difference for our energy levels and just that whole, just whole body health. Right. And so the satiety, where it's just like we eat a little bit and you feel good and you feel full, which is just amazing, right? Versus we could be eating all the same, but take away that fat and it would feel really, really hard. And the energy just wouldn't be there.
Your body's ability to burn the fat as opposed to the carbohydrates, though, how is that? That's what we're doing right now, right? By adding in the MCT, where our body, is it just because our body uses that? Why does it use it first?
Well, it uses that particular fat, the MCT oil itself, the type of fat that it is, it can go into the liver and the liver can utilize it right away and convert it over to ketone energy. So it's just that type of fat, where even with like a saturated fat, like say a butter, or if you're eating, let's say if you're eating a marbled steak and that sort of fat, your body has to process it. So it does take a little bit longer, but it is still good fat and it's still doing lots of greatness in the body. But the MCT oil is, it is just able to be used right away without actually having to be converted or to be broken down, or, you know, the body doesn't have to work for it. So it's just your cells can recognize it as fuel right away. And that's the key to the MCT oil, for sure. Keto is definitely not for everyone. And for women especially, we do need more carbohydrates. So I don't love like a strict keto diet. I love cyclical. So that's what I do with a lot of my clients is I will do, you know, it depends on the individual, but my favorite with women is about 3 days with 0 carbohydrates. And then you have a bit of a carb refeed day. So it's not quite the same on this program. This program is more geared towards just getting the inflammatory foods out. Because what happens is once we do that, once we get those inflammatory foods out and we feel the effects of a high fat diet and we're feeling more energy, we're feeling better, then you can really decide from, you know, that kind of 3 week on mark, what do you want to do? What do you want to hold on to? Do you want to keep doing the high fat? I always hope that people say yes, that yes, I'm going to keep doing the high fat. And then decide what, like, you know, how do you want to move forward? What are you looking for? What are your goals? What's that next level? Right. And so then that's where we can really, just kind of dial in the diet in a way where maybe someone wants to try full keto. And then because we've already been doing high fat, low carb for 3 weeks, it's very easy to transition into a full keto diet if that's what you are looking for, versus just continuing on as you have been. And just it's so individual. Everyone has different goals and there's different means to get
of course.
But a strict ketogenic diet is very challenging long term, and definitely not I don't think the healthiest. I think there's certain groups of people who very much benefit from a ketogenic diet, but as far as just the general population, just low carb, high fat is that kind of sweet spot for the most people, for sure.
Okay. Yeah. When you're talking about this cyclical, did you say you do 3 days keto and then so just like one more question, but where does the fat burning part come in? Like everybody wants to get into ketosis, right? Because is that when you start burning the actual fat that you already have? Is that right?
Yeah. Well, what happens is when you're burning fat as a fuel, that's ketones, right? So the ketone body is the fuel that we get down when we break down fatty acids. So that's the idea of fat burning fat. It creates these ketone bodies. So in order to be in ketosis, you have to have a certain amount of these ketone bodies circulating in your blood. So that's the idea behind ketosis. And the only way to do that is if we have limited sugars, right? So that's from our, carbohydrates. That's from, your quick sugars as well. But we need to limit those so the body is forced to burn the fatty acids as that fuel, right? So if we're doing both at the same time, inherently our bodies are pretty lazy. And as sugar burners, it's the easiest thing that the body can do. So as soon as there's sugar on board, that will always be the preferential fuel. So that your body will always choose to burn sugar over fat because the fat just takes a little bit longer. So for some people, if they're quite if their metabolism is quite damaged, it will take them a lot more effort to get into ketosis than someone who has a little bit more flexibility as far as their biology goes. So it just depends. So some people need to be very, very strict with 0 sugar for an extended amount of time before their body really kicks over into ketosis. And other people, it's a quicker process, but it just depends. Okay. So it's very, again, very individual. But once you get into that sort of, it's called fat adapted. So once you've, really cut out all the sugars and then you've, added in the fat, depending on some people, it's, maybe 2 weeks. Other people, it could be upwards of 6 weeks. But once you get to that fat adapted state, the idea is that flexibility where you want to, add in some sugar here and there just to allow the body to just adapt, right? Because that's ideally what we want to be able to do. Right. Be able to eat some sugar, utilize that really well, and then go right back into fat burning. right? So
Right.
yeah, that's really what a healthy body does, right? That's what we all should be able to do, right? So it's the idea of, when you go many hours between meals, we as our biology is able to do that. But what we've kind of programmed ourselves to be are just strictly sugar burners, where then we get that crash, we get that irritability, that just like really intense need to eat right away or have something, and that's just a broken metabolism is what that is.
Right.
So,
yeah. Okay, interesting. Okay.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for coming out tonight. And
I'm glad I did.
Yeah, awesome. And if you have any other questions, throw them out on the forum, and we'll get through another awesome week, and I will see you next Sunday.